Hello, good afternoon, everyone. In our second day of orientation class, we are going to understand the body fluid. We are going to study about the body fluid and we are going to understand how this body fluid is having clinical implication in our body. Now, body fluid or the total body water. Now, our body, it is comprised of water as well as electrolytes, which is positive as well as negatively charged, like the cations and the anions. Now, this body fluid or total total body water in a normal healthy person, it is about 60% of the body weight of a person. Now, assuming that the person is 70 kgs of weight, total body water stands out to be 60% of the 70 kgs, which is 42. So, total body water is 42 liters. Okay, this is the amount of the body water that is present. Now, this total body water that is present in the body, it lies all over. It is like touching all the cells of the body also. Now, this is present inside and outside the cell and are termed as if they are parted by the compartments depending on where it is located. So, depending on its location, total body water is of two types. One is the ICF, another one is the ECF. ICF or the intracellular fluid and ECF or the extracellular fluid. So, intracellular fluid, it means the fluid that is present within the cells. Like if this is the cell of the body, for our understanding, say this is the cell of the body, the fluid that is present within the cell, inside the cell, that is the intracellular fluid. Whereas the fluid that is present outside the cell, outside the cell. If this is the cell, then the fluid that is present outside of it, the regions and the area that is outside the cell, this is the extracellular fluid. Now, going by the volume, intracellular fluid is like 40% of the total body weight. So, 40, assuming that the person is 70 kgs of weight, 40% of 70 is 28. So, 28 liters. And remaining 20%, from where this 20 and 40 coming from? This is coming from the 60. This is coming from the 60. Now, remaining 20% is what the ECF is holding. Like 20% of the body weight. So, 20 by 100 into 70 is equal to 14. So, 14 liters. Now, this 28 plus 14 is equal to 42 liters. This is the total amount of body water. Now, again, in this ECF, because ICF is ICF within the inside the cell, so inside the cell there are no further compartments, but ECF, which is like the area of the cell outside, it has got many other parts also, many other type of compartments also. Now, depending on where it is present, this ECF is again further divided into three regions. One is the plasma, another is the interstitial fluid, another is the transcellular fluid. Now, plasma. What is plasma? Plasma, it lies in the blood. Now, this our blood is made of, like, blood comprises of blood cells plus plasma. So, this plasma. Okay. And interstitial fluid. What is interstitial fluid? This is the fluid outside the vascular system. It includes lymph. This interstitial fluid, it includes lymph. And what is transcellular fluid? This transcellular fluid, this is present in the lumens. Like the structure where there are like lumens, this is a region where they are present. Example, synovial fluid, peritoneal fluid, pericardial fluid, then also the aqueous and vitreous humor of the eye. Going by the volume, the plasma. What is the plasma? Now, plasma is the liquid portion of the blood. Okay, this is a liquid portion of the blood that has no RBC, WBC or the platelets, only the liquid portion. And it is like 3.5 liters. It is like 25% of the ECF. It is like 25% of the ECF. Now, here the interstitial fluid, it includes the lymph, but it is outside the vascular system and it has got nothing to do with the blood. It is 10.5 liters by volume. And the transcellular fluid, it is very less. It is 1 to 1.5 liters in the, okay. This is the distribution of the body fluids. Now, there are various factors that affect the body fluid. What are the factors affecting body fluid? Or what are the factors that influence or determine the body fluid. First is the age. Age is one factor which is the determining factor of the body fluid. Until puberty, until puberty, the total body water, eventually the body fluid is same in male and female, whether it is a boy child or a girl child, the total body water until the child attains puberty, that is sexual maturation, it is the same. After puberty, the total body water is slightly lesser in females. So, next determining factor is the sex. This is like what we have studied in the previous, the previous factor itself. In females, the adult female, in females, the adult females, the total body water is 50% of the body weight. Whereas, which is slightly lesser, whereas in an adult male, it is 60% of the body weight. That means in a 70 kg of adult male, it is 42 liters. Whereas in a 70 kg of adult female, it is like 50%, which is about 35 liters. So 10% of difference. Females have 10% less body water compared to that of a male. Here, the fat content is an important determining factor. So, usually, if fat content is more in an individual, then the body water content will be less. Now, this is also one of the reasons why the total body water is slightly lesser in females. Because in an adult female, what happens of any age compared to usually that of a guy, that of a man, here the subcutaneous adipose tissue happens to be little more in a females compared to the male. Male have more lean muscle. Therefore, the total body water content is higher than in females, as females have more subcutaneous fat in their adipose tissue. So, these three are the factors that determines and makes up the total body water. Okay. Now, all this various type of fluid, total body water, the total body fluids that we have studied, they can be indirectly measured. Okay, measurement of total body water or body fluids, like different body fluids. Now, there are certain substances and certain criteria for measuring of this total body water. Rather, let's write body fluid because we are going to study all the body fluid, not only total body water, measurement of body fluids. It will be easy to remember. Now, criteria to study this body fluids. What are the criteria? Okay. First is usage of a suitable dye. Okay. The dye used for body fluid measurement should be easily available and can be easily administered. So we have to choose a dye that is suitable for administration, like exogenous, we have to inject the dye, and also it should be easily available. Not only this, dye should not be toxic to the body. The dye should be easily withdrawn and measured. Not only that, the dye should not alter the volume, composition, and functions of the body fluids. Okay, these are the criteria that the dye should have. Now, the principle on which this measurement is done, like principle or the method, the formula for measurement is measurement of the body fluid is like volume V, it can be in ml or liters, is equal to amount of dye injected by the concentration of the dye. So by difference, the concentration of the dye that we have administered and after circulation, how much it is present from the sample that we withdraw. It will give us the understanding about the quantity of the various body fluid. Now, we have studied that there is ICF, ECF and total body water, interstitial fluid, all this thing we have studied. Now, how do we measure? Is it that one particular dye? With one particular dye, it is not possible to measure everything because then we will not understand the difference at all. So, there are certain standardized dye which is used to measure all this body fluid. So the dyes that I use, like dyes used to measure, number one, to measure the total body water. We use deuterium. This is the one which is standardized and it is used to measure the total body water. Second, we have the ECF. ECF, the gold standard is to use inulin and nothing else. 3, we have the ICF. Now, it is very difficult to measure the ICF directly. So, indirectly, we measure it. How do we measure? It is like the total body water minus the ECF. So, we know how to measure the total body water. We know how to measure the ECF. That way, we can measure the ICF by subtracting this two. Now, coming to the plasma. Okay, plasma, it can be directly measured by Evans blue. It is a dye which is used to measure the plasma. Then we have the interstitial fluid. Now, interstitial fluid, it is measured by subtracting the plasma volume from the total body water, or very specifically, it is, we can say it is used by, measured by subtracting the plasma volume from the ECF. If we subtract the plasma volume from the ECF, we get the interstitial fluid. Now, there is a formula to measure the plasma volume very accurately. Formula to measure the plasma volume. So, what do we know? We know plasma is what? It is a liquid portion of the blood and it is not having any blood cells and any of the blood cells. The maximum amount of blood cell in the blood is that of the RBC. Okay, after platelets. After platelets, it is the RBC. Now, the standard formula to measure the blood plasma is that blood volume, into 1 minus hematocrit value. Hematocrit value is the PCV, the packed cell volume of the RBC. Now, how do we measure the blood volume? The blood volume in turn, blood volume can be measured by radioactive, like chromium labeled RBC cells. So, these are the various dyes and substances which is used to measure the body fluid. Okay. We have understood the body fluid, we have understood the measurement, we understood where it is lying. Now, body fluid, we were confined about the water part mainly. What did we study at the beginning of the lecture? That body fluid does also include certain charged particles which are the cations and anions. So, charged particles like cations and anions are also present in the body, in the body fluid, right? So, this body fluid is present in the ECF as well as ICF. Now, this charged particle, that is cation and anion, The predominant one, the most ones are the among cations, it is the sodium and potassium. Among anions, it is the chloride and phosphate. There are others also, calcium, magnesium, manganese in traces, and chloride are there, bicarbonates are there, this is there. But the predominant one, the maximum ones are the sodium, potassium, chloride and phosphate. Now, this concentration of this sodium, potassium, chloride and phosphate, they are not same in the ECF as compared to the ICF. Okay. The major cations in the ECF, that is the positively charged particle in the ECF, the major one, the predominant. This all are present, remember, this all are present in the ECF and ICF. But not all are present in equal quantity. Some cation are more in the ECF, whereas some cation are more in the ICF. Same, some anion are more in the ECF, some anion are more in the ICF. So, major cation in the ECF are or is sodium. Okay. And major anion in the ECF is fluoride. Coming to the anion, major cation in the ICF is potassium, and major anion in the ICF is the phosphate. So you see there is like unequal distribution of the body fluids across the cell membrane, and this is the basis of our resting membrane potential, which we will study in the next class. So this is the composition. Now, why are this ECF and ICF important? Okay, so when the cell is lying in normal condition in the body, it maintains a certain osmotic pressure, a certain tightness in the cell, both inside the cell and outside the cell. So, to understand that one, because the body fluid has this cation, anion, and also it has got substances like glucose, urea, all of those. So, to understand the osmolarity of this cell, we need to know the terminology and definition of certain terms like osmolarity. Now, osmolarity, it is the amount of osmotically active substance present per liter of solvent. Okay, this is osmolarity, the definition that we studied in chemistry. Now, osmolarity, what is it? It is the amount of osmotically active substances present per kg of solvent. Okay. In our body, in human body, osmolarity and osmolality are of negligible difference. So they are kind of used as one. They're kind of used like as one. In the body, we have osmotically in human body, there are osmotically active substance. Example, example, sodium chloride, calcium chloride. Okay. So any substance that dissociates in water is called as osmotically active substance. Okay, like example here, NaCl in water, it will dissociate into Na plus and Cl minus. So from one molecule of NaCl, and this Na plus and Cl minus both are osmotically active. Like both are osmotically active. So from one molecule of NaCl, we get two molecules of osmotically active substance, which we call as osmoles, the unit. Okay. Whereas glucose, glucose, it will not dissociate in water. So it is not osmotically active. Okay. Now there is a particular osmolarity that is maintained within the cell by the compartments of the cell, like ECF and ICFN, there is a certain osmolarity that is maintained. Okay, so the normal osmolarity of human cell is 280 to 295 milliosmol per liter. That is the normal value. Now, like any solution that has same osmolarity is called isotonic. Is called isotonic in nature. Any solution, any solvent that has got the same osmolarity, that is 280 to 295 milliosmol per liter, is called as the isotonic. Example, saline. Example, saline. Okay, 0.9% NaCl. Okay, any solution having osmolarity greater than 290 milliosmol is called as hypertonic. Is called as hypertonic. example which is higher, right? So for example, like 5% NaCl. 5% is greater than 0.9%, so it is hypertonic. Same way, any solution having osmolarity lesser than 290 milliosmol per liter is called as hypotonic. Example, say 0.2% NaCl. Okay. Now, you must be wondering, why should we know all this thing? What is the actually applied aspect of it? The clinical aspect of it. Okay, now let's go to that one. The clinical implication. Now, how clinically it is important. So, clinical implication of the body fluids in context to osmolarity. Okay, what is the clinical implication of it? Okay, what is the clinical implication of it? Okay, if I draw out the cell as a compartment for our simplified understanding, say this is the cell, this is a cell. Okay, so this one, let's think, this is the ICF. Here ICF is partitioned with a larger area because it occupies more volume. It is holding 28 liters, right, of body fluid, and this is the ECF. Okay, and the scale that is linear, it signifies the liters, like volume of water, and the scale that is on the Y, it signifies the osmolarity. Okay, osmolarity. Now, under normal condition, like under normal conditions, see, this compartment is also full of fluid, that is the ICF. It has like ICF fluid, right? It is full of fluid in normal condition, all of it. And the ECF is also full of fluid in normal condition. ECF is also having fluid, right? Okay. So, when the osmolarity is same, like under normal condition, the in normal condition, the osmolarity of ECF and ICF are same. Okay. So what is happening since it is same? Therefore, no movement of fluid happens from ICF to ECF or ECF to ICF. So, under normal conditions, if when the osmolarity of the ICF and ECF both are same, Both are like say 290 milliosmol per liter, 290 milliosmol per liter. In this condition, the body fluid in the ICF is staying in the ICF, the body fluid in the ECF is staying in the ECF. There is no shift of compartment. There is no movement of this fluid from ECF to ICF or ICF to ECF because the osmolarity is maintained at the normal value. But this is not the condition when this thing happens, that it remains the same. Now, in these three conditions that we have studied, right? Isotonic, hypertonic, hypotonic. Now, there can be condition when a person has to take IV infusion, like due to some dehydration or say due to some reason or the other, there has to be intake of isotonic fluid, there has to be intake of hypotonic or hypertonic fluid, right? So how, if such condition happens, then how the movement of this fluid from ICF to ECF or ECF to ICF happens depending on the osmolarity. And this concept is very, very important clinically to understand the criteria needed for infusion in different clinical conditions. So, with a few examples, we will understand the concept of this movement of fluid depending in the change in the osmolarity. Now, this concept is explained by Darrow Yannet diagram. Okay. So Darrow Yannet diagram, it is the same thing. We will draw the cell in a simplified way and we will take different case. So our first example, our first example is like gain of isotonic, gain of isotonic fluid, means in condition when the body gains fluid that is same as that of the fluid that is present in the body. Example, a very good example is 0.9% sodium chloride. Okay. Now, how are we going to draw the diagram? Listen, see and understand. If you have a clear concept, you don't have to think about the different clinical situation. You can correlate. So as per the Darrow-Yannet diagram, we are drawing the simplified version of the cell where the left side is our ICF and the right side is the ECF. This is our ECF. So this is the liters. Now remember, this solid line means the normal condition, like increase or decrease in the liters. When it happens, it will be shown in dotted lines. The solid lines are the normal one, and this vertical line, this means the osmolarity. This is the osmolarity. This vertical line that I'm highlighting, that is making dark a little bit, this means the osmolarity. Okay, this is the osmolarity. Now, whenever the body gains, whenever the body gains isotonic fluid. Now, isotonic fluid means what? Isotonic fluid, isotonic fluid has same osmolarity as body fluid. So, the vertical line that is reflecting the osmolarity, it will not increase or decrease. It will not increase or decrease. What will happen? Only there will be volume expansion. Only there will be volume expansion. So, it will be like this fluid will go to the ECF. Isotonic fluid, when it gets infused, it first goes to the ECF. So when it goes to the ECF, only there will be expansion in the volume, but there will be no change in the osmolarity. So what happens is that the osmolarity is the same, only there is volume expansion in the ECF. So here only volume expansion happens in ECF. So when there is volume expansion in ECF means there is more of a liquid. Automatically the number of the blood cells did not increase. So the hematocrit value will decrease because now the blood will have more of the isotonic solution, more of the liquid portion than the plasma portion. So the hematocrit value will decrease. Due to volume increase, the blood volume will increase, as a result of which the blood pressure, the systolic blood pressure will increase. Only this is the change that will happen and no major change will happen. Now, talking about the second example, that is the way we gained isotonic fluid, same way we can also, there are conditions when we lose also isotonic solution, like loss of isotonic fluid. What is the example? Example is diarrhea. When a person suffers from diarrhea, not only the water goes out, the electrolyte also goes out. So, how will the Darrow-Yannet diagram be affected? So, if this is the cell, okay, if this is the cell and this is the ICF and this is the ECF, here we have the volume in liters and here we have the osmolarity. Okay. So whenever there is loss of fluid, first thing that will happen is there will be reduction in the volume of the ECF. And since it is isotonic, the osmolarity will not change because it is isotonic. The osmolarity will not get affected. So there will be no up and down in the osmolarity scale. Only what will happen is there will be reduction in the volume of the extracellular fluid. The extracellular fluid, it will become less in quantity. So, the ECF volume decreases. Now, since there is no change in the osmolarity, there will be no shifting of the liquid. Only the ECF volume will decrease. Now, if the ECF volume decreases, that means what? In plasma, the liquid portion, the water portion is less, right? So, in the blood, what will happen? The water portion has become less. The blood cells are now more compared to the water portion. The hematocrit value increases, and since the ECF has decreased, the systolic blood pressure also decreases. These are the changes that will happen. Okay. Example 3. Example 3. Here, the example 3, we will study gain of hypertonic solution. So, here what happens? Now, if we draw out the compartments, gain of hypertonic solution, say for example, excess intake of sodium chloride. So, in a solution, if there is excess of sodium chloride present and we are intaking it, excess of sodium chloride means sodium and chloride, it's a salt. That means it is more in quantity compared to that of the water. So, in this condition, what will be the Darrow unit diagram? Again, this is the ICF and this is the ECF. This is the volume in liters and this is osmolarity. Okay. Now, when there is excess of the sodium chloride. Now, sodium chloride in excess is hyperosmotic, means the osmotic pressure in a solution that has more sodium chloride is more. The osmolarity is more than 290 milliosmol. So, what will happen when the hyperosmotic solution is given, it comes to the ECF, automatically there will be thickening of the ECF because hyperosmotic pressure has come, water content is less and it has entered the ECF. So obviously the osmotic pressure in the ECF will increase. The solid one is a normal one and the one that is dotted, it has increased. It has increased. So, it has increased and since it is hyperosmotic and it is gain, what it will do? It will draw some fluid out of the ICF because ECF has become more thick and ICF has become like lesser hypoosmotic, and following the law of osmosis, what we know, in osmosis water flows from, this is a point, from low concentration to high concentration, right? This is what is the meaning of the osmosis. So following the law of the osmosis, there will be movement of water from ICF to ECF, ICF to ECF, and because the water is moving, eventually the osmolarity of the ICF will also increase. I repeat, when there is intake of the excess NaCl, what will happen? NaCl is hyperosmotic. NaCl is hyperosmotic. So, when hyperosmotic solution is coming to the cell, it first goes to the ECF, as a result of which the osmotic pressure increases. Now, when the osmotic pressure increases, first there will be movement of the water from the ICF compartment to the ECF. The ICF compartment fluid moves to the ECF. Okay. Ultimately, when the ICF moves to the ECF, again some fluid will move from the ECF back to the ICF. So this movement of this fluid back and forth from ECF to ICF and ICF to ECF, ultimately the osmolarity of both ICF and ECF will increase, and volume of ECF will decrease. Okay, this is what will happen when there is gain of the hypertonic fluid. Next example, that is example 4, which is loss of hypertonic fluid. When loss of hypertonic fluid, like fluid that is rich in electrolyte like sodium and chloride, that is lost. Example, Addison's disease. Okay, example, Addison's disease. Now, what will happen in Addison's disease if we draw the Darrow-Yannet diagram? This is our ICF, this is our ECF. So whenever there is loss of this hypertonic fluids, for example, the body is losing like NaCl, body is losing NaCl, immediately what will happen? There will be decrease in the volume. There will be decrease in the volume of the ECF. Not only that, because it is losing osmotically active substances, there will be decrease in the osmolarity also. Initially, there will be decrease in the osmolarity. Now, this decrease in the osmolarity, what it will do? The ECF is now become lighter than the ICF. So, there will be migration of fluid from the ECF to ICF, because compared to the ICF, now the ECF has become less in osmotic pressure. So, the volume in the ICF will increase. Volume in the ICF will increase until it stabilizes at this. So, just the opposite will happen. Okay, now here in context to this, one thing that I would like to mention, like whenever we are gaining hypertonic fluid, initially the volume will decrease and the osmolarity will increase. Now, after the shifting of the fluid, as we have studied here, eventually there will be gain in the volume of the ECF. But here, this phenomenon is not happening. Here, once the osmolarity has decreased, this decreased osmolarity will be maintained in the ECF as well as in the ICF. And since ECF became lighter, there will be opposite migration of the fluid and the expansion of the ICF. So here, the ICF volume increases. Why it increases? The decreased osmolarity moves the fluid from ECF to ICF, and ECF volume decreases. Okay, this is what is the scenario when there is loss of hypertonic fluid, because hypertonic fluid is also hyperosmotic fluid. The next example, the fifth example, is the example of gain of hypotonic fluid, means hypoosmotic fluid. Example, syndrome of inappropriate ADH hormone. So, here what happens in syndrome of inappropriate ADH hormone, the ADH hormone we know it reabsorbs water. ADH reabsorbs water, that is here, too much. Okay, means the ADH hormone is functioning too much and it is reabsorbing water in large quantity. So, when this is happening, if we draw the Darrow Gannett diagram, what stands out? This is the ICF, this is the ECF, this is our liters, and this is osmolarity. So, when the body is reabsorbing too much of hypotonic fluid, that means water, there's a large quantity of water and very less quantity of the minerals or the salt. So, what will happen at once, there will be volume expansion. The ECF volume and the ICF volume both will increase. Like this ECF and ICF volume both will increase. But the solution is hypotonic. The solution is hypotonic means water is more and the osmotically active substances, the minerals which exerts the osmotic pressure, they are less. So the osmolarity will come down. The osmolarity will come down. So, if we write, it will be it will increase the ICF volume. Okay. It will increase the ECF volume. Okay. And it will, what it will do? It will decrease. See, the dotted lines have gone down. It will decrease the osmolarity in both ICF and ECF. So there will be volume expansion and decrease in the osmolarity. Okay. The opposite will happen if we lose hypotonic solution. Example 6. Example 6. Loss of hypotonic solution. So, loss of hypotonic solution. What is a classical example of loss of hypotonic solution? Like when we are sweating. When we are sweating, water is coming out and salt is also coming out, but the concentration, the quantity of water that is coming out in the sweat and as a sweat is much more than the quantity of the salt that is coming out. So, in the Darrow-Gannett diagram, it will be ICF, ECF, this is liters, and this is osmolarity. So, loss of hypotonic solution. Loss of hypotonic means there will be loss of water from both the ECF and ICF, from both the ECF and ICF. So, there will be shrinkage in the volume, the liters. Okay, there will be shrinkage in the volume of liters. The tonicity is less, means less quantity, like less quantity of like salt is going out, more quantity of water is going out. Example, sweating. So, so when more of water is going out and less of this osmolarity is like going out, then what will happen? There will be increase in the osmolarity. Because now since more water is going, the mineral that is staying, it is making the body fluid in the ICF and ECF more thicker. It is making them more thicker. As a result, the osmolarity lines. The osmolarity is increased because water is less. Water is less. See the volume one below. It has shrunk. There is less volume of water in the ECF and ICF, but the osmolarity is more. The steepness, the taller, it has gone higher because more quantity of salt and less quantity of water is now present in the body fluid, both inside the cell as well as outside the cell. So if we write it, it is like in both ICF and ECF, the volume decreases, whereas osmolarity increases in both. Okay, these are the changes. So once again, if we revise, because it's a very, very conceptual thing, what do we know? This is the cell. We have 28 liters. We have 28 liters of body fluid in the ICF and 14 liters of the body fluid in the ECF. Under normal osmotic condition, there is no movement of the fluid from ICF to ECF and ECF to ICF. But during different clinical condition, when the body is gaining or losing fluid, there is a shift in the compartment. Okay. The first scenario, what is the first scenario? The first scenario is gain of the isotonic fluid. Like what happens if the body has been infused with IB fluid of the isotonic solution, which is nothing but our saline, normal saline. So in this condition, we see there is only volume expansion. Like the volume becomes more. That is the linear line. The dotted line becomes more in the ECF. But there is no movement of any fluid because, because the osmolarity in the isotonic fluid is same like that of the body fluid. So there is no movement or change in the osmolarity, only volume expansion, which results in the dilution of the RBC, as a result of which the blood volume also increases and the systolic blood pressure increases. Okay. Second scenario, loss of the isotonic fluid. Like in case when a person is suffering from diarrhea. So when a person is suffering from diarrhea, what happens? That person is losing equal quantity of water and equal quantity of the minerals also, like sodium, chloride, all these things. So it is again loss of the isotonic fluid. So when there is loss of isotonic fluid, if you see, look at the linear line, there is like decrease in the volume in the ECF. But again, since it is not a hypertonic or hypotonic, the tonicity, the osmolarity is same in the ICF and ECF. There is no movement of the fluid from ICF to ECF or ECF to ICF. So only the volume decreases, blood volume shrinks. If the blood volume shrink means what? The water content in the blood is less, in the plasma is less, and the RBC, the cells are more. So hematocrit value becomes less, and since the blood volume has decreased, the blood pressure also decreases. Okay. Now, gain of hypertonic solution. Let me erase this one, that it will be better for us to remember. Okay. So what happens in this gain of this hypertonic solution? Initially, what we see is that when the hypertonic solution is lost, as in case of gained, as in case of NaCl, sodium chloride. Now, sodium chloride happens to be a solution which is hyperosmotic. Hyperosmotic means the osmolarity is more than 290 milliosmol. So, a thicker solution is entering the ECF. So, when it enters the ECF, at once there is, you see the dotted lines, at once there is like increase in the volume of the ECF. So when there is increase in the volume of the ECF, what happens? There is migration of fluid from the ICF into the ECF. So when there is migration of the fluid from the ECF to ICF, some fluid also moves back to the ICF, but again from the ICF, it again moves back into the ECF. So ultimately, after the migration, what stands out to be is the volume of the ECF is increased. But also remember, this is a hypertonic, hyperosmotic solution. So there is like going up, there is increase in the osmolarity. There is increase in the osmolarity. So after it stabilizes, actually there is volume expansion in the ECF. The ECF volume increases, as we have seen by the dotted lines. There is increase in the volume of the ECF, increase in the blood pressure, and there is like slight decrease, like after the migration and reverse migration, there is like slight decrease in the ICF. This is what is the scenario. Okay. Now, if the opposite happens, as in case of Addison's disease. Now, Addison's disease, it is a condition when the body loses more minerals, like more sodium and chloride than it is supposed to. So here what happens here, as we can see, at once there is like decrease, reduction in the ECF, the volume of the blood, it reduces. Now this is a loss of hypertonic fluid, means the fluid is rich in minerals. The fluid that is being lost, it is having more of sodium and chloride than the water molecules. So not only the volume is less, what happens? The osmolarity in the ECF also goes down. The osmolarity in the ECF goes down. Now, since the osmolarity goes down, it means what? The ECF is now less osmolar, means it has more it has got more hypoosmolarity compared to the ICF. So there is migration of water molecule from ECF to the ICF, and there is volume expansion in the ICF, but the osmolarity is reduced. The osmolarity is reduced. Fifth condition, that is the gain of the hypotonic fluid. Like there are conditions when the ADH hormone starts behaving abnormally. Like there are conditions when the ADH hormone does not function properly, it is less and it is more. So when the ADH hormone, which is important for reabsorption of water, it is over functioning, it is reabsorbing too much of water, then at once there is volume expansion in the ECF. Now this volume, this too much of water from the ECF migrates to the ICF, and the volume of the ICF also increases. Now, it is gaining too much of water, but not minerals, So, as we see here, the osmolarity has gone down. The osmolarity, this vertical line, it has come down in both the compartments, ECF as well as I. The opposite one, loss of the hypertonic solution. Like in summer season, a sweaty summer, what happens? What happens when a person is sweating? The person loses water as well as sodium and chloride. But the concentration or quantity of water in the sweat is much more than that of the salt in the sweat. That means more water is going, the body fluid in the ICF and ECF is becoming thicker. So the osmolarity, you can see the vertical line, it has gone up. The vertical line, it has gone up. The osmolarity it is more, it is increased. Okay. Now, because of the loss of water, there is also decrease in the volume. So the linear line is also like gone up. But in this condition, what happens? There is first flow of the water from ECF to ICF and then again from ICF to ECF, because loss of hypertonic solution means it is having the loss from both the compartments. First the ECF is losing and then fluid from the ICF starts moving to the ECF and then again some fluid moves back to the ICF. So the shifting of this fluid happens. Ultimately, in both the compartment, the volume reduces and the osmolarity increases. Okay, this is our applied aspect of the body fluid in condition to the clinical situations. So this was our general physiology, our overview of the general physiology. Tomorrow we shall be starting with the nerve physiology. We will start with the conduction properties of the nerve physiology. Then we will go on to the other topic. Okay. See you all tomorrow. Thank you.